On this episode, we finally settle the debate on whether The Last Jedi was good or not. Spoiler alert, really not. Welcome to Movie Diver, the show that deep dives into what makes movies great. My name is Richard, and today we address one of the most important debates in the history of humanity, whether The Last Jedi was good or not. Normally, I prefer to focus on celebrating the good stuff about movies and avoiding reviews generally, but I was sent the link to a video arguing that the movie is actually good, maybe even great. And a lot of time and care was taken into making it, so I thought, what the hell, let's take a look.
I know a lot of people have grievances with this film, and I will attempt to respond to some of those grievances. I have numerous friends and family that did not enjoy this film. I hear you. I rebuke no one for not liking it. I just want to talk about it. Okay? Okay.
Uh-huh.
The Last Jedi is a movie filed down to a razor-sharp point in such a way that it appears like a series of random decisions when in fact it isn't. It's Breaking Bad precise, and don't fret, I'll feed you baby birds if you graciously stay with me for a bit. The Force Awakens video is my most popular video by a stretch and was important to a lot of people, so now I'm expected to make a sequel video with through-the-roof expectations.
Might want to... let's fast forward it? Yeah.
And starts believing in a world not run on fairy tales. No idol is beyond reproach, and nobody is right because of who they are and what they've done. Even if you thought the casino subplot was silly and dumb, because it is definitely both things, but even that is just Star Wars camp, which it's always been.
Okay, enough. Look, I'll put the links to the video in the thing so you can see for yourself, but basically the gist of the argument that this guy eventually gets to is that because there is a theme that Rian Johnson explores in the movie, that makes it good. I think the argument basically is, the film says that you shouldn't have to worry about where you came from or whether you're good or evil. The world is more complicated than that, and anything or anyone that holds on to those ideals are dangerous, or at the very least outdated, and should therefore be dispensed with, much like the original trilogy themes and character dynamics and blah blah blah. And because the themes that the characters are exploring within the story mirror the situation in the real world regarding the development of the franchise, that makes this film brilliant, and Rian Johnson brilliant. And I'm sorry, but in this example, that's just not the case. Now, I'm not going to argue the fact that those themes are in there, somewhat. You want to say that they're in there? Fine, they're in there. That's not the point, because here's a newsflash, that is the point. All stories with a beginning, middle, and end have a theme inherently attached to them. All of them. It doesn't matter whether the filmmakers intended it or not. The audience's interpretation of a film with a beginning, middle, and end guarantees that some sort of theme will start to become apparent. So if you argue that a film is good and not bad because it has a theme, yeah, that's kind of like saying that a car is good because it has wheels. You see, a car needs wheels. It's not to be congratulated for having them. It just has to have them to be considered an operating car. Then you can take it for a drive and see if it's any good or not. So a film can't be judged on whether it's good or bad because it has a theme. It can only be judged on, amongst other things, how it executed on that theme. How it presented to the audience for digestion, and whether it was done in a way that would give the most enjoyment to that audience. And before you start to say that you can't judge a film on that either because there are infinite ways that stories can be told and still be enjoyable, I'm sorry, that is just an incorrect statement. If you want to talk about thematic exploration in storytelling, you need to know about a gentleman by the name of Joseph Campbell. His life's work showed us that for all humans across all boundaries of geography, time, social status, sex, age, and even religious beliefs, that there is one way that we as a species like our stories to be told when it comes to delivering theme. One way. And if you haven't heard of this concept before, go read a book. Now, there are plenty of filmmakers and film watchers out there who will tell you truthfully that they prefer films that do not follow that particular meta-story structure. I believe them, but my response is that those people enjoy the feeling of experiencing a story that subverts the structure, which ultimately reinforces the fact that we are evolved to appreciate the meta-structure and then have personal tastes related to that. Kinda like Hitchcock purposely killing off the character introduced as the hero halfway through the film Psycho, so the audience had no choice but to connect with Norman Bates and feel like they were trapped at the Bates Motel. Now, there are some filmmakers out there who are aware of this thematic structure and strive to achieve it in their own story. And that's really hard to do. And then there are others who have no idea or interest in it and don't even bother to try. Now, I could stand here and explain to you how badly thematic structure was executed in The Last Jedi. I could even use slow motion black and white footage from the movie to really make my points sound super correct. And it would be just fascinating, don't get me wrong. But that would require an explanation of what good thematic structure looks like. And unlike some of our fine friends on the interwebs, I'd rather not make a half-hour video. Instead, you could take my earlier advice and go read a book. The truth is, I don't need to go into an incredible amount of detail about thematic structure and its execution to demonstrate why The Last Jedi was not a good movie. And you don't need to hear it to know it either. You're a human being. You know how you like a story to be told. It's an unconscious instinct for all members of the audience, and it's connected to those things that Joseph Campbell found out in his life's work in that book that was flashing over here, but I won't. The problem is when you want to express that you're disappointed with a movie, but you're not familiar with story concepts and the terms that describe them, you struggle to pinpoint the exact reason you thought the film that you just saw, sucked. And then people confuse you for being a Star Wars troll, or choose to label you as one even though they know you're actually not. When people do that, they are pivoting from the obvious crappiness that exudes from the film instead of addressing it head on. No matter how much we wax lyrical about the thematic virtues of a film, we need to also talk about laser bolts from ships that get pulled down by gravity and have limited ranges for some reason. Which is not a logic problem. It's an ignoring the rules of the franchise problem. We'll get to that in a moment. We need to talk about that ridiculous fight sequence in the throne room thing. And we need to talk about the infinite number of wrong moments. What? But what we really need to talk about is the Starship Enterprise. Yeah, that's right. I'm going to talk about a Star Trek thing during a Star Wars thing. Maybe I felt like aiming for the maximum geek level today. What of it? Or maybe there's a connection with the main thing that is terribly, terribly wrong with The Last Jedi and the reason that the Enterprise has been blown up how many times? You see, when a writer gets handed the keys to a massive franchise like Star Trek, this titanic gift comes with a lot of responsibility. The big challenge is that you're given characters and scenarios that have been absolutely done to death. That's why they're beloved franchises. They've been around a long time. Coming up with new scenarios is really hard because you have to come up with new stuff, but also have it slot perfectly in with the existing texture of the franchise. So you can do that. You can slave over a hot computer for a ridiculous amount of time and try to come up with something new and enjoyable for the franchise, which is what you're actually getting paid to do. Or you can just go for a quick and easy way to generate emotion out of a fan base and pretend like you're working within the confines of a franchise by doing something like blowing up the Enterprise a lot. Now, I have to say, this is one of the worst forms of hackery when it comes to writing. I'm sorry. It reeks of a lack of creativity and commitment to the craft, and I think it has a lack of professionalism as well. What's the matter, highfalutin screenwriter? Are you too good to be working on a franchise? Then don't take the gig. What's the matter, highfalutin screenwriter? Are you so bored with the established characters and scenarios of a franchise that you don't want to get down and dirty with developing them further? Even if they were introduced in only the one movie before yours? Hey dude, don't take the gig. Now, am I saying that's what Rian Johnson did with The Last Jedi? I don't know, I'm not really
Death also cements Kylo as the second most well-developed Star Wars villain, because hell, if anyone...
I have to, think about it.
It's time to let old things die. Snoke, Skywalker, the Sith, the Jedi, the Rebels, let it all die. You have no place in this story. You come from nothing. You're nothing.
It's a little unclear to me still. Wow. So, today we have learned that all stories that have a beginning, middle, and end have a theme of some sort in them. And therefore, arguing that a film is good because it simply has a theme is just wrong. Especially if you never address the actual issues with the plot that is supposed to deliver that theme. We've also learnt that writing a new story in an existing franchise is hard. But that doesn't excuse you blowing up the Enterprise in favor of, actually coming up with something new yourself. And anyone that tells you that doing that is a good thing doesn't understand how to deliver a proper narrative. I'm sorry, they just don't. If they did, they might consider how polarized the audience was with The Last Jedi, an audience that desperately wanted to love it, mind you, and think that it might have something to do with how the story was executed, maybe? Join the dots, people. It's not hard. And finally, we have learnt the most important lesson of all, that just because someone has uploaded a video to YouTube about the movies, that doesn't mean they know anything about them. Wait.